So it's a little bit windy today, but I'm going to try to speak as loud as I can because also the neighbor is mowing their lawn. So today we're going to be doing a couple things here on the homestead. We're going to be checking our aquaponics system that I showed you in the last video. We're going to be setting up the prep work for the bees that we're going to end up getting in 5 days on Friday. And then we're probably going to plant some of these flowers just to introduce them to the property and give them you know, a little taste of what what they can have if they stick around. Might plant a couple potatoes. We'll see. We do have some spuds that we ended up cutting up, or some potatoes that we ended up cutting up, and they now have little sprouts on them, so we'll probably put those in some bags. And I do have to also fix one of the garden hoses because last year the female end got seized up, and so I have to remove that and put a new one in. So we're gonna do all that today. I don't think I ended up telling anyone this really publicly, or any of, you know, outside of my friends or family, but I ended up buying a sailboat, which tends to be, if you buy a boat, it tends to be another project, you know, sort of thing to work on. This boat is actually lake worthy. It's ready to go. However, I am going to redo the cockpit here and probably sand it down and just put some primer and some new paint down just to freshen it up a little bit. But otherwise, we're going to be taking it out probably Lake Cheney here in a couple weeks. I think the guy that ended up selling it to me said that he would be willing to bring us out and show us the ropes. So look forward to that. So this is a growth bed that we built last year. We had some strawberries over here, some lavender, and then we had a couple flowers over here, some marigolds and some other perennials. But over here was some of my vegetables. We had some onions, and I think we had some potatoes right here. This year I'm going to try to do garlic and onions and no potatoes. Instead, just do the potatoes in the bags. And right now I have some of my beehive frames just sitting in here, just kind of waiting to be put into their proper place in the actual beehives. But I'm going to be putting these flowers that we just bought from the store, I'm going to be putting them in here for later. We're probably going to plop those down after we get done with the beehive setting up. So I'm repurposing the planks that I used for the compost bin a few years ago. We ended up taking that down because we wanted to make some more room for the chickens over there. So I am going to rebuild the compost bin at some point and place it somewhere else. But I do have a lot of wood left over. And so we are going to take out some of these nails that we got in this board here and reuse them. I'm trying to reuse a lot of the materials that we have on the homestead here, just because, you know, I don't want to keep buying some new wood, or, you know, new screws or anything, or new nails. I want to see if I can continue to reuse stuff over time. Alright, so we have the growth bed that looks like it's not leaking, so I think we're good to go ahead and put some clay media in here. I also see that our pipes haven't been leaking at all, and then also our water is pretty much the same water level that we had it before we left. So I came in here to check on the aquaponics system, and it looks like we have a leak. Unfortunately, our water level is just not to where it was whenever we left it about a week ago. It looks like this has a good fill. The biofilter has a good fill, and I don't see any crack down there in the sump pump, so it might have something to do with the growth bed, and specifically it could be that that hole that I showed you last time that I didn't really patch that well. Another place where I typically have issues is down here, which is the drain to the aquaponics system, and it actually goes out of the greenhouse. I did redo that part, so I think that's good. So I'm gonna put some more water into it and let it run for a little bit while I'm here, and maybe we'll find the leak. All right, here we got Ellen. She is putting in the marigolds and the above ground bed. This is the garden hose that I was talking about that has been seized up with a male end into that female end. So I'm going to redo this part right here, and I'm actually going to use these PVC cutters to cut this, because I think that should work pretty well. Look at that. Perfect. Alright, I got the shackle on now to put the actual threading piece in there. And there we go, good as new. Well, I messed up and I found the leak, and unfortunately, let me just show you this. I left a hose in the stock tank here. As you can see, I left a hose up here, and it's actually going outside of the greenhouse there. And it's what I used to fill up the tank last week. And it turns out that whenever I disconnected the hose, it started leaking. So yeah, this is water coming from my stock tank. So I don't think I have a leak. I think I'm the leak, and I'm not going to do that again. Alright, so this is the setup that we have for the bees. We're going to be getting 3 hives in on Friday, and so we're going to do kind of like a triangle here in the middle of this stump. Here is an example of one of the hives, basically 2 cinder blocks, and then we got 4 planks of wood just to double it up for a little more rigidity, but maybe strap them down to the cinder blocks just in case it gets a little bit too windy. But this is kind of out in the open here, so they have free range to really go wherever they want, anywhere on the property. Back there to the west is the typically beans. I think it might be wheat this year, but then they have pretty much full access to the homestead and any of the plants that will be growing this year. So yeah, I'll go ahead and get all 3 of these out here so we can take a look at it. So we do have one more beehive back here that I need to clean up. Hopefully there's nothing that's inhabited it, but I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up and move it over to our new location. So this hive is a little bit gross because it did get maggots and a bunch of flies and some moths, and basically I didn't take care of it well enough after it died. Essentially, short story is this farmer put down some insecticides and pesticide, and it ended up destroying this hive and almost killing that hive. But this one already had a little bit of varroa mite going into the season last year, and so it didn't really have much of a chance. But like I said, I probably should have cleaned this up a little bit more, because if we look at this, we'll start to see where the termites and the maggots and the flies ended up coming in and just wreaking havoc on this. Keep in mind that this was completely filled with comb. This was completely drawn out, and it was completely filled with honey. All of these frames were completely filled with honey and or brood, which is the egg that the bees leave, and you can just see there's mounds and mounds of poop and dead flies, and it's just not good. So if we look in this box even more, you'll see all of this fly, poop, and it's just really not good. So I would recommend that you completely clean out your hives whenever you end up dying, because you'll end up getting something like this. So I've learned my lesson, and we're not going to do this again. So some of these frames from that hive I do not wish to keep, so I am going to reserve these for fuel next time we have a campfire. And probably just buy new frames. I am going to keep the boxes themselves, because I believe those are still salvageable and I can actually wash those out with soap and water, but these are a little bit beyond repair, I believe. Other beekeepers might have a different opinion, but I want totally clean hives, and I'm going to work better not to have this happen again. Well, we weren't quite able to get all 3 of the hives out today, but we did get 2. We cleaned them a little bit, and I am going to buy some new frames to replace the ones that I showed you that are a little icky. And then I do have those remaining frames that are sitting outside of the greenhouse as well that I'm going to put in there. And they do have some honey in them. In fact, there's been some bees that have came over the past couple weeks as it's warming up and have started to eat a little bit of that honey. I don't know if I've showed you, but we actually also have a wheat patch and a barley patch. Most of this we use to brew beer, homemade beer, homebrew, and so it's pretty good stuff. We've made a few batches this year from last year's crop, which was not as good because it took us a little bit longer to harvest, but I'm thinking we'll have a really good crop this year because we do have a thresher, and I think our harvesting method is going to be a lot better this year. I did also start on the quail hutch. I have this frame down here in the bottom that I repurposed from the top of one of these other hutches, and so this is going to allow the quail to sit on top here, and then all of their droppings are actually going to fall into this barrel that I'll then put in the compost pile. And then I do have a little bit of screen here as well. I'm going to try to make some type of basket that is going to hold the eggs, and the eggs hopefully will just kind of roll down. More to come with this, another project. I'm hoping to get some quail here in the next week or two around the same time that we get the bees. So anyways, that's the homestead update for bees and the greenhouse.